Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, what do we have? All right, approval of the minutes of the May 8th, 2025 meeting.
Make a motion to approve them as written.
If I recall, I was not present at that
Okay,
meeting.
well, I guess the chair can
Yeah, you
second it.
remember, right?
Any discussion? If not, please say aye for approval. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposition? No? Okay. Motion passes unless our clerk comes out here and tells me it doesn't. I noticed that they do a poll of the committee every time.
Oh.
Oh, you know, we never had that. Once in a while, if there was something critical where it looked like it was really going to be critical, then we'd do it. Okay, town treasurer report. Is that what you want next?
Well, yeah, that's what I sent you guys. If you want to discuss the treasurer's report through April 30th.
Okay. And I'll go to this.
That was in the agenda packet, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, I only had the question about what the Faro machine was, which we understand is now the crime scene and analyst imaging. I had 70,000. What, just out of interest, when was that approved? Roughly,
Say March.
When you say approved by whom?
the council.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have they purchased it?
Yes, it was, as soon as it was approved, they purchased it the next day.
You're kidding me.
They were
They
able-
probably had it sitting up there.
Okay.
And actually, that Faro machine cost 70,000 is coming from the project reserve. They are basically reallocating from a license plate reader to this machine, and then the other 11,000 was coming from their capital budget that they determined that they weren't going to need for radios and in-car computers.
So they're not going to offer a license plate reader?
Well, right now, the funding that was for it has been repurposed for this. So my understanding is that's no longer in the capital improvement plan.
Well, whatever they have must be working because I got a speeding ticket.
That's the speed camera program. That's separate. So that's actually mentioned in here too.
But that
because that
Reads a license plate, right? That's how they know it's. me,
Well,
right?
yeah, but it's meant to give you a speeding ticket. It was not budgeted for because it's something that has been in the works for like 2-3 years that we never got off the ground. And we had it in the budget previously. So FY25 budget, we didn't put in there because we had no idea when it was gonna start. And then 2 months later it started. So that's one of those things that that's gonna be a budget adjustment is the revenue and expense for that.
Okay, so on the finance and budget updates,
Mhm.
anticipated budget amendments and reappropriations, because that's where the Faro machine came from. Can you just explain the cost of the town manager and planning director recruitment?
Mhm.
Was that not?
That was not budgeted because both of those positions resigned after the budget was complete.
Okay, so that these amendments still have to be
They
made.
still have to be made and they will be made. I am shooting to make them on July 29th when I provide a fiscal year end report.
But they'll be made to the current.
They'll be
Year.
FY25. budget
Okay,
year.
and what kind of money are we talking about there
Around 60,000
for both?
for both, yes.
And a reminder, the budget year begins July 1.
Yes.
Mhm. So there's an amendment that's going to be made.
Mhm. Yeah.
60,000. The Faro machine, this is just moving the money from the project reserve into
Correct. It would be.
wherever you charged
of
it.
Other financial sources from project reserve to and then the expense for the machine.
Okay, and what does the 2023 bond interest mean?
So that was actually my fault. When I did it, I based it on the collection of taxes and not took in consideration the actual interest payments. So I budgeted the collection of taxes, but the interest is more than taxes, and we have an escrow account with 1.4 million. So I'm gonna have to take 400,000 from there and use it to make sure that we have the correct expense of revenue for that bond interest payment.
So it's just being moved to the bond.
It's coming from the escrow, the fund balance escrow for the bonds. And basically that's where the revenue is coming from, and the interest expense is the expense side.
So does that have any impact on your comment on page 5, second bullet, the town revenue from real property taxes exceeded the budget by 3%?
Well, it did. But that has nothing to do with the heritage drain. I keep those. Pine Grove, I keep that when I calculate those numbers, I keep that tax out of those numbers.
Is that-
Tax specifically to cover the bond interest and principal?
Is the 2023 bond, is that part of Pine Grove?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. Yes.
okay, I understand why you got that separate now. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, that tax collection is very specific to pay those bonds back.
So then in this bullet, why would the tax rate have exceeded the budget?
Well,
Suddenly people are paying their bills, or?
when I calculate, I take the state's number, then I kind of increase it somewhat for new development that the state would, because when the state sends me their number, they know what permit's been issued and they put that in their number.
Yeah,
And then I assume, well, there's gonna be more issued that they don't know of, so I increase it a little
Gotcha.
bit more. And I just didn't increase it enough for based on what the
Cool.
collection.
okay, well, that's a good,
In FY 26 with the water issue, I took the state number and put that in because I don't know,
To be
because
seen.
we're not accepting any more applications anymore. So I don't know what's gonna be submitted. So I went with what the state said. This is your tax, this is the new buildings, and this is what your expected
and
revenue be.
have you heard if they're any closer to resolution on the water allocation issue?
No. And that's why I didn't want to do any increase in this fiscal year like I did last year, because we were at that cap.
I tell you that Mrs. Turner, that apparently must attend the council meetings, maybe. She spoke the other night, and apparently she referred to a comment from the commissioners, how, why, whatever, that was one way to control La Plata's development. Now, whether that's true or
Well, what
not.
about controlling Charles County doing?
Yeah.
That, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, because I typically will increase that based on the trend. I just didn't want to put more revenues in there than we can really expect with that water good hanging.
So we're actually at that stopping point. So the
We are.
planning department is really not presenting much to the planning commission now?
We are not accepting any more applications for building.
Okay, so the only thing they're presenting are applications that have already been in process.
Yes. that has
Okay.
been approved.
Do you know how many are outstanding?
No, I don't. I can find out.
I just,
That's the planning.
yeah, just
We have a new
interested.
planning director.
Can you remind me his or her name?
It's Don Dooley.
Don Doley.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you want to know how many permits or how many applications have not issued permits?
No, how many we have outstanding that have been approved? Yeah, I guess that, yeah,
So,
yes.
uh,
Can I make a moment? I left my phone in the car.
That's a strategic error.
Yeah, I guess you can't make a vote while I'm out. I won't be long.
Okay.
Run.
all right, I will ask our new planning director. to see if I can-
Well, just while he's out here, is there any way that we can ask the town manager to come to our next meeting, the new town manager?
Yeah,
The next one or the one
yeah,
after?
he's sort of on the 16th.
Okay,
Monday, so I will.
so, yeah, so maybe by the time he's, I mean, because finance is probably going to be high on his.
I hope so. I haven't made a list because I'm like, there's so many things in my mind. I'm not gonna forget about it. I've got so much that I need to talk about.
First thing he's got, well, we're being recorded.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how.
Did one of them. I have been looking at the council meetings, so I can tell you that,
Yeah.
which I hadn't for, well, I just, you want to take a picture?
Yes, please. What I missed?
Nothing, some gossip.
Yeah, town manager starts Monday.
And I was just asking if we could have him come to one of our meetings.
That
Now,
would be great.
technically, he is the liaison
Or
or
his.
his designee,
Yeah,
I
after we
guess.
pass that thing there.
Okay.
So basically, the assistant or the acting town manager has appointed me to be the liaison. So he would
Okay.
have to do the same thing. And he
Right.
must take over this. He does have a background in budget and finance, so.
Oh, great.
I would hope so, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
somebody in that position needs it.
Does he have a background in project management?
That I don't know.
Because you know, when we meet here, that's certainly something I'm going to bring up. These things need project managers to get things done.
And I think that's really the key that has been holding things up is there is no designated person. There's nobody that has been assigned to it or stepped up to take responsibility for that.
So I understand that that could actually lead to proposals for additional staff because we've fundamentally been depending upon people who already have full-time jobs. They can't squeeze it in.
So in the budget, the project manager, I put 90,000 under contracted services under public works. So that is in our budget to spend on project manager. And that's project manager, not for just grants. That's project management for the town as a whole.
Okay, so let me play through that at the risk of digressing from the agenda. If we have, use a grant example, we have a contract and we build into that the project management. But we still need to have somebody in the town to be overseeing that project manager. And that takes time away from their current job, which could slow things down, right?
And that's why I specifically put the 90,000 in the general fund for the project manager, not as part of the grant.
Okay,
So we have one in for public works.
Yes, I put 90,000 in contracted services for project managers.
Can the town bring somebody on an hourly rate
I'm sure they could.
contractually
Yeah.
without them
We
being an
do have-
employee?
So we do have somebody managing some of the grant projects and they're on an hourly rate. Well,
Okay.
there's a contract that they're managing these projects, but those are the
Mhm.
grant projects,
Mhm. 70K, right?
90.
90. Okay. Didn't take me long to lose 20K. So if we do have him in, then maybe we could put a chunk on the agenda where we could talk to him about different things that we,
Let me,
yeah.
like your project manager.
I agree with that. And is it possible to have a list available for that meeting of the various projects that are on books?
I can give you the, what's in our capital budget, which is pretty much the projects that we have for 26. I'm working on 27 now. Well, I'm working on the CIP based on the information we have. Again, it's something that I feel that needs a lot of work, but we have to continue working with what we have until we can actually get the data that we need to do the forecast and the evaluations of replacements, which is really the thing is there's a lot of adding to and an estimate of when we need to replace, but there's no assessment to back that up.
Yeah, right.
So that's,
A natural follow-on that I would have to that is just because of my experience with the comprehensive plan. When we developed that, I remember during those discussions that we're putting a lot of responsibility on the staff to manage a lot of things that we said we're going to do. I would think the projects that you just mentioned would be a subset of that, but probably not all of it.
no, and so in the capital budget, it does specify what goal it's meeting on the strategic plan. But
Okay.
that's not like this one project meets the entire goal. It's part of that goal.
Right. At least that way, the next time the comprehensive plan rolls around, at least there can be some demonstration of at least progress, if
Mhm.
not completion. Okay.
That is one thing that we had a work session, I wouldn't say work session, because it was recorded with the council a few weeks ago. And one of the priorities was getting a dashboard together that shows our progression on some of the comprehensive plan goals. So that is one of their goals to do.
Okay.
I'm still on page 5. Investment revenue exceeded budgets significantly. Can you?
Because I under budgeted, I didn't want to over budget, assume that we're going to continue at our 5%.
Okay.
So I under budgeted on the interest revenue, but of course, in the FY 26 budget, I did some research and of course, we have bonds that we purchase or CDs that we purchase. Those I know exactly what our interest is going to be. So I started out with that and then I did some research. I know the interest has gone down. So I assumed, don't quote me, I might be wrong on what my estimates were. I believe I put from July 1st through the first half of the fiscal year, I believe I did a 3% interest on our current fund balance amounts. And then the second half of the year, I did a 2.5% rate of return on fund balance amounts. And then that's how I got the interest that we were going to earn. And then it's allocated out based on the fund balance in each of the different funds. And that percentage then was put in the budget for the investment earnings for FY 26. So in FY 26, the general fund, I believe, is just under 600,000 in interest that I'm estimating. This year, we're going to be over $1 million in interest in investment earnings for FY 25. But I definitely think it's going to go down because I've seen the interest rates decrease.
And all of our investment is in non-equity, like fixed
Oh, absolutely.
bonds, right?
Not even,
So limited
It-
in what I can do. But I can push it out to you for 2 years. So I've changed how I was doing a laddering investment. Now I'm just taking 2 years. I can still get some bonds for around 5 or 4.9% for 2 years. So I'm
I
purchasing.
think you're going to do better in 26 than you think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope I.
Right.
There's our financial prognosticator.
No, not really, but I'll tell you, she tries to be more on target than I did when I would
Like,
cheat a little bit, I guess you would say.
I don't want to overestimate revenue, but I want to try to keep it realistic based on what's happening and what economists say that happens. I don't know, so I'm using what they're saying.
Yeah,
Right.
and this is the toughest time ever to, so.
I don't want to
Hard to predict.
I don't want to underestimate because I don't want to feel like
I'd be
that.
conservative.
Yeah,
Yes.
I just.
Yeah.
And based on with some of the conditions with the water, I don't want to assume that we're going to continue the same rate of building. So it's one of those things I have to balance.
Mhm. And, you know, this is something that you'll be able to bounce off of your new town manager because he's going to bring a fresh set of ideas and thoughts into this, which might also help.
I mean, it's the same thing with trying to determine the rates. I ran the reports of what our growth rates, how much our water usage has increased, looked over that, looked at how it increased year over year over the last 5 years, added that percentage to that. So I try to get it, have a reasonable reason why I've increased it a certain amount or why we're asking for this type of rate increase.
Mhm. Just on the rates, going back to the rate study, I understand it was released to the council. Does that mean that we could now get to see it?
So yes, because it's
Okay.
still a draft, because there's two key pieces missing. There is the water agreement. We have no idea how that's gonna affect the rates.
Mhm.
And the fact that the capital replacement schedule that we gave them was something that is not comprehensive. It had no assessment behind it. So those were the two reasons why we haven't completed it, because we feel like there's two pieces missing there to give us a good idea of what we need the rates to be. Because the idea is to be able to set this rate at a certain percentage and not have to fluctuate up and down. Like,
Are we done with 5? Did you have any other questions?
On which slide or?
You were
You said
questions.
you want
I'm
5.
up to 15 now.
Okay.
The first bullet there was cost of town manager and planning director recruitment. Understand it costs money to go after them. Are there other positions open that we're currently recruiting?
No, we're not using an outside recruitment.
Okay,
That was because we used an outside.
Right. cool. So we're once in a long time back to full staff, huh? Working staff, let's say.
The director of public works is resigning. The last day is Friday, so we are going to, but I think that's gonna be something that our HR is going to recruit for instead of having that by source through.
Who is that?
Cox, VR Cox.
He always leaving.
Yeah, he was our director of public works.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so when public works to you is what? Water, sewer,
so the
trash?
and sewer is actually under our wastewater treatment plant superintendent. He
Okay,
manages those two things. Public Works is the Public Works admin, facilities, streets, parks, sanitation.
okay.
And then stormwater has actually been moved to under planning and zoning to manage that responsibility. The director of planning and zoning.
Stormwater is now under planning and
Yeah.
zoning.
The new director of planning and zoning is managing the stormwater department now.
That's not happy news. Been a lot of turmoil down there. I mean, a lot of turnover.
So when is that resignation effective?
I think tomorrow's his last day.
So director of public works, and they're not going to go, they're going to try and do a local recruitment on that?
Well, I wouldn't say local, but the director of HR is going to do the recruitment.
Okay, so that's going to be in-house.
Yes.
So in the meantime, that's going to put even additional load on, what's her name, Kristen?
Well, actually, Danny Woods will be, well, I can't say that. He hasn't accepted, but we're looking to have the acting, or not the acting, but the assistant public works director.
As the interim,
The acting,
right,
yeah.
okay.
What are your turnover rates like? Have they jumped all of a sudden?
I can't answer that, but I can ask HR.
Karen, did you say that question again?
I asked what the turnover rates were. I'm wondering if there's been a jump. It seems like we're hearing more and more about, I mean, we've been dealing with the town manager and the planning director for the last year.
Yeah.
And now we have the
seems to me
police
in this
chief,
last
who's
year it's just jumped for some reason.
Yeah. police chief is retired, so and now we've got this.
I will ask her.
And the police chief is still currently interim or acting?
It's acting
They're waiting for the new town manager.
properly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Mhm. Totally makes sense.
This new town manager knows what he's getting into.
He says he knows.
Guess he had to cover all that during the interview,
Where
right?
is he coming from?
Colorado.
Oh, he's going to have an accent.
La Plata County.
No, he's gonna say we have an accent.
I think he's in La Plata County.
Yeah.
That's where he's coming from.
La Plata
Now it's
County.
back to La Plata town and he's in
Uh-huh.
La Plata.
Oh, my goodness.
This is going to be fun.
Bet that for an
Yeah.
interesting coincidence.
Okay. So the other budget update that I'm looking at here, we've got an increase in the IT services. That's because you had to, when you bought the new person on, the new
Yeah.
recruitment, they said that it wasn't
Our
secure.
cybersecurity
Yeah.
was at risk and we needed to
Okay.
add new services, and that was about 30,000. So the council, and they knew that
Uh-huh.
this was gonna require, this was not in our budget.
And it's in the budgets going forward though.
It is going
Cybersecurity.
Forward,
Yes.
yes, not in FY 25.
And what's
who in
happening?
the staff manages that?
That is our assistant town manager. now.
Okay, because that's definitely
Ms.
a wise
Meyer?
investment.
You have a specific IT person on staff now, right?
Now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they resigned. So we,
Back to your question. What's going
Uh-huh.
on?
IT used to be under,
it used to be under
on
finance.
finance,
and
exactly.
then Finance took insurance. And the assistant manager took the IT.
I had insurance when I
Well,
was for finance, but that would make more sense.
yeah, it moved around. It went, for some reason was under administration and then with all the changes, finance took the insurance and the IT then went to administration.
That makes
Okay.
sense.
Wow. Okay. So you don't have a dedicated person on
Not
staff
at this time.
for that?
Yeah.
So
There-
do they have a contractual, somebody that is making sure that everything is secure?
We have a contractor that.
Is working with you? Okay,
Yes.
so there's a
Yes,
step
but
in.
There is that IT position still in for our budget and
Yeah.
it's in FY 26 budget.
So in the meantime, if somebody comes in, they can't get their computer to work, their help desk is through this contractor.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah.
the contractor?
Data prize.
Data Prize.
How long have we had somebody here on board as an IT person?
The first one was 4 months and the second one maybe 2.
Okay, so it's a new position.
Yes, the new.
Anyway,
It was just put in for FY.
Okay.
Yes.
I tell you, that's a lot of responsibility
And that's,
for somebody that's not an IT person, I can tell you that.
and that's very quick turnover. So
On two back
there's
to
going to
back.
be HR director, Monica. Does she have exit interviews to understand why the people are leaving?
Yeah.
Because that suggests to me maybe we're not paying enough. If they're-
Or
My-
other issues.
so My understanding is one resigned because they got a offer, which when we did hire this person, we knew that they were looking to get some security clearance, but hasn't gotten, didn't know when they were gonna have it.
That's
So we hired them because it was an indefinite known when they were gonna get it, they received it and they were offered a job with Federal. The second one, I believe the responsibilities were more than expected, for what the job description said, and that was the reason for leaving. So I do think we do need to reevaluate that job description and
Well,
make sure it's
that's exactly,
comparable.
that's the value of the exit interview.
Yeah.
If the
Mhm.
job description, if there's a suggestion that the job description ought to be updated, that should be seriously considered. So.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something that your contractor can take a look at, have them review the job description and see what is realistic for one person in a 2080 hour year, full time.
That's a
And,
recommendation because they
and-
would clearly understand,
Yeah.
be able to advise well on that.
and then what qualifications or certification should that individual come to the job with?
I'll
and-
bring that up for
Yeah.
HR.
It might just be something worth looking at because that's Joe, we wouldn't know
Yeah.
what to say. I mean, we know we need somebody with IT, but what, do you want them getting the computers up and running, or do you want them monitoring more advanced systems? And it's possible that you've got everything in that job description. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Going to the speed enforcement cameras. When we talked about that last time, there was a contract in place, the
Mhm.
speed enforcement cameras. We're taking the pictures, but, and we're supposed to be doing the chasing after the unpaid bills, which then they found out they couldn't do.
Yeah,
So did that
Still
get,
has not been resolved.
that's still
That's
outstanding?
Still outstanding. In fact, they
Okay.
didn't follow up. They said they were gonna follow up with me and they haven't, so. I don't know.
And I'm assuming that we're not paying them
We're,
per the
we're
contract.
paying them right now, because we were we hadn't paid anything for 6, 7 months, but it's definitely something that we need to resolve.
Okay. So they've been paid for the 6 or 7 months, or
They
they've been
have.
paid
So-
proportionately for the,
No,
What
they've
they-
been paid what they've billed us. So yeah, we do need to get that resolved.
you might want to hold up
Yeah.
from paying any more. There's only what, well, this year, this is the last month. Mm.
Follow up with them, 'cause they were supposed to get back to me. Because then they weren't sure that if that was really a requirement or not. That was a requirement that we were told by the chief that they couldn't do it. And then when we addressed it with the vendor, they didn't know that was part of their contract, and then they had to find out if they could do it or not.
Is it part of their contract?
It's in the.
It's in the
it's
contract.
Agreement. that
Okay.
They would be submitting anything over 180 days to the DMV. It's
Okay.
very
So-
clear.
And even if they can't do it, then they should have known it at the time.
So it's very clear in the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
good.
chief is saying that they can't do it because they're taking the pictures,
No, I think it's a Maryland law.
a Maryland
Yeah,
law estate.
That's
So
what,
it's not like they can contract it out then either.
well, that's what's confusing, because that's what they said they could do. Like, that's what we're currently doing. But they said they were aware of it. So yeah, this.
Okay, so there's
We
there's
had,
there's some
we had
contractual
meetings,
issues.
With, the PD, the vendor and finance and discussed this. And the vendor said they would get back to me. And this was probably about 3-4 weeks ago. So I need to follow up on that.
Okay. I just was reading it on, the revenue and expenditures, because you said that we were actually in the hole because we weren't getting the 180-day plus.
Where the revenue stream is supporting the cost of the contract for the cameras, the rental of the cameras and the service for the cameras. We are not making, there is no surplus of income from this. This is like
Okay.
almost, it supports itself.
So we don't
Is it
own the
keeping up?
cameras.
It's pretty close.
Well,
I
that's
mean, we're not, it's pretty, I mean, what's coming in is covering the cost of the operations.
So we don't own those cameras.
No, they're
So-
rented. They're leased
When's the contract up?
3 years, and it started like August or September of 24, and it's a 3-year contract.
The contract includes maintenance of the equipment if it gets broken down or, okay.
Did they also review the pictures?
Well, the police have to do that because it has to be done by a sworn.
I know it has to be a
Yeah, we're-
sworn officer, but, or at least it used to be.
Yeah.
So we actually reviewed the pictures?
Yes, the police.
Okay,
Yeah.
So-
so we are losing then.
Well, I have it, well, I actually have it separated as activity. So any costs related to these cameras, so any income, any costs related to this camera is under one activity, so I can keep track of it under that activity. code.
Okay.
It's not like it's not in with all the other operations that the police do.
But if
So-
they are not doing the follow-up, then they're not in contract. So you theoretically could start threatening to go with another company that can do what you need them to do.
They're doing the late notices, the 30, 60, and 90 days. What's in question is 180 days of, now we can report it to the DMV and
Mhm.
flag their license renewal or registration renewal to get the ticket paid.
And what does it take to do that?
I don't know,
Okay.
because I'm not, that's why I like, well,
Yeah,
this is a collection thing. This is what the vendor was supposed to do.
yeah.
And they're supposed to follow, but I will definitely email them back and ask them, what's the status of that?
But we're only just breaking even on something. that
Pretty
we
much.
Probably should be making money.
Well,
So to Joe's point, this technically is extra work for the police department? Because they were driving and catching speeders before. They're still doing that, right?
I'm assuming.
So now they're also-
We do not, there is
So
no,
it's state,
yeah, we don't get any funds from that. So the only funds we're getting from speeding is the cameras.
If a La Plata policeman catches someone speeding in La Plata, La Plata doesn't get that revenue?
neither, no, Charles County doesn't get it either. Nobody gets it. It goes to the state.
Now, with that, the state does provide us with the police protection aid grant, which is running like 180, 190,000 a year.
Okay, so regardless of where the money goes, I just want to confirm the point that I'm getting from your comment. This is these speed cameras are now putting additional workload on the police department.
They are,
Okay,
yes.
because they're the one, you say a sworn officer has to do the
Yes.
review.
They wanted these cameras to generate revenue. The problem that I'm running into is it's not generating the revenue that they anticipated because it was supposed to generate enough revenue to cover the cost of the cameras, but also the cost of 2 officers. And we're definitely not covering the cost of the 2 officers. We're covering the cost of having the program.
Well, we certainly don't want to send out the message, we need more speeders to raise that. fund.
I mean, it's fine. If the objective was to slow traffic down, then that's fine. We're doing what we're supposed to do. If the objective was to slow traffic down and to have additional revenue to cover other costs, we're not doing that.
Yeah, and that would be counterintuitive. If it's effective in slowing down traffic, then the revenue is going to decrease. But the cost of the lease probably doesn't decrease, right?
So eventually, I do anticipate that the revenue will decrease and we need to figure out, but that's why they can move the cameras around. So they don't have to stay in the same spot.
Mhm.
They can move them around.
Right.
But yeah.
And how many do we have?
4.
4.
Yeah.
I know we're
I
one.
think you should put them on Norfolk Drive in my neighborhood.
I've had 2 different friends that apparently got caught coming and going when they kind of were first coming out on the day.
Well, mine was on Route 6 coming eastward into town where it goes from 50 to 40 to 30 in a relatively short amount of time. And I drive that a lot and I have to be conscious of that, particularly this particular day between the 40 and 30.
Yeah.
It wasn't, so.
I don't have any other questions. Those were the ones that I've noted.
I have questions on the rules of procedure when we're ready to talk about that.
I think that's next. So we've done with the regular report.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
job.
Good, thank you. Okay.
I really do like the fact that you're putting those notes. Because you're in the best position to analyze the number to come up with those conclusions.
Mhm.
You know, I could spend a lot of time looking at the numbers, but not have that background you have. So appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, it's sometimes I go through and like, okay, why are they over 100? Why are they 193 or 139% on contract service? Oh, that's right. We have this portion that was never budgeted that I need to count. And it's like when I was looking at HR, I'm like, why are we at 129? Oh, that's why we had the recruitment. Because I try to make sure that the categories line up
Yep.
with what we expected to be.
Um,
Are we ready to talk about rules of procedures?
Nice.
I'm having a little trouble looking at the documents. Karen, the one that you provided,
Mm-hmm.
you have yellow highlights. Are they ads?
Yes,
Okay, because I
yeah,
kept bringing up documents that look like I kept looking at the same one.
yeah, no,
So-
basically we had the alternate member, which Karina had put as a block at the bottom, but when I started looking at it, I realized there were some additional things. And then I thought, well, it can actually be put into the regular thing. So wherever I added something, I yellowed it. this time.
So you just pointed out something that I missed. The idea of the alternate member was always in the rules and procedures, just elsewhere.
It was actually,
No,
Dennis pointed out to me, because I went around, I can't find it. It was actually in like one of the title things of the.
ordinance,
Well, correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong, we've never appointed one.
no,
Yeah,
And why have we not done that?
I've had 3 people put in an application. 1 declined when I said that it was an alternate.
Oh, so we pursued it.
Yes,
Okay.
1 has never responded back to me. 1 we interviewed, but felt didn't have the experience as the finance committee needed, but we did recommend another committee for them. which I believe they applied for and it's on. So it's still out there. We're gonna do another push out on Facebook saying that we still need a member, an alternate member for the finance committee.
Yeah, because, a number of us have missed meetings. Having an alternate would be valuable.
Yes, and I'm mentioning Karen, I guess we can think about, we can't officially offer anything, but we can certainly talk to somebody and
Encourage them.
encourage them, or at least let them know that the opportunity is there, and
And that opportunity is on the Plata website.
The application's still up there, but I think they did a push out. I don't know.
And didn't have us on
They
it.
didn't have the finance committee on it, so we'll do a push out on Facebook saying that that we.
So along
finance
Joe's
committee-
lines, if we find someone that we encourage and they're actually interested, they could at least call you. right?
Yeah, they can go, actually, it's on, they can fill out the application online. It's still
Okay,
there.
okay.
Yeah, yeah.
and then submit it online, and then you'd follow up, or, okay,
I'll send an email. If they're interested in the alternate position and see if we can set up an interview.
okay. Well, keep in mind what I said, I'm very serious about it.
So I know this wasn't part of your changes, Karen, but which of us are filling 3-year terms and which?
The three of us are the 3 years because we were the first ones in, and then Randy and Nicole got the other term
Okay,
because they came in.
so having been on these kinds of things in the nonprofit world, it's easy to lose track of who is who, and when they roll off, who's maintaining that list? Somebody in your office or?
No, but I'll remember.
Oh.
I have actually.
She'll give us-
What
she'll
happens
give
if
us
you
the catch-
resign?
She'll give us the catch-22 when your 3 years come up. So
Right,
we've
that's
got
a-
2 more years now, right?
I keep all the applications and everything in a file,
We probably,
but I can create a list.
when we get our alternate member, should do a formal
Yeah, a little spreadsheet.
posting and put it in the minutes
Yeah,
as well. The names and who,
yeah, since these are public meetings, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's only set up for charter members so that we've got staggering going on.
yeah.
All right.
Gotcha, right.
And then when I looked at it, the alternate member, you initially had given them 3 years, and we have 4 years as our renewal. Yeah, so when I,
For you guys, whatever you guys,
Yeah.
this is like your.
it was a great
document, you
starting
guys do
place.
Whatever you want.
So when I put it back in, because we already got 1 year under the belt, I felt that person should be given 2 years and then go into a 4-year renewal at the same time that we do.
Yeah, that's good.
So,
And I did read this before, but for this meeting, I read it primarily with the changes you had in mind,
mhm.
but it's prompted me to read others. Is there a place in here, let's say we complete our initial 3-year term? Is that what it is? Yeah.
3 years.
How many consecutive 3-year terms can an individual?
There's no limit.
No limit.
No.
Okay.
I think it goes to 4, so if you say you have 3 terms.
Yeah, so we have 3 and then we go 4.
4.
We could
Yeah.
keep on going.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's also subject to the mayor and the town council's
Because we're all
approval.
appointed.
Because
Right,
we're appointed,
right,
so that's their way out.
Yeah.
If they.
That makes sense. I mean, it's just not automatic. You roll from 3 to 4. You still have to go through council
Yes.
appointment.
Yeah.
phase.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do we need to deal with, I don't get but so complicated, but if there is no chair and vice chair, how that is to be handled at the meeting?
It's not in here.
No, I
I think typically that rolls to the person with the next most tenure. That would be any one of us.
right,
So we're not violating anything
Yeah.
under Robert's rules that way.
Okay.
So I don't think we have to physically put it in here then.
okay,
Because it'd be nice to get this done.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, because Robert rules, we fall back onto that after
Right.
this, right?
mhm.
Uh, Are we, I don't think we're officially under Rob, oh, are we
Well,
under?
we might not be officially under it, but that's
That's.
It's certainly the
an
guy,
Yeah.
accepted guide. I
right,
think
I,
that
I agree with that.
Unless somebody here disagrees, it's
No.
probably a reasonably
No.
accepted guide.
Um, do we want a motion for approval of is any other, well, we can still have the discussion after the.
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve it as written.
I second that and then look for discussion.
Discuss.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring
Mhm.
up. So do we need a council to approve this amendment?
I don't think so, Kelly, because
Okay.
these are your,
Okay,
I mean, you've got to follow the rules of the ordinance, but then these are your.
Any other discussion? All in favor of approving the rules of procedure as amended by Karen, please say aye.
and you can make that 5 votes because both Nicole and Randy gave proxy in favor, right?
Yes, but we discussed, there is no, there is no procedure for proxy vote.
Okay. So we have a quorum.
We have a
3-0
quorum
works, right?
with you, yes.
I'll second the motion. Or are we at discussion?
No,
We're at the
we're-
discussion. Now we're on vote.
We're
Call for the
had
question.
discussion.
I was
Call for the vote.
presupposing that you were voting in favor.
Right, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But
I know.
I've seen it happen that
Yeah.
somebody made a motion and didn't
Mhm.
vote for it. But anyway, all in favor, please say aye.
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 And Nick, Carrie, going forward, things like this that would take some of the workload off of you that we can do, I'd be happy to work with you on stuff that the committee's working on.
Great.
I mean, we don't need to, you don't need to do everything if you want, you know.
But that's
If-
nice of
if-
you to offer because you certainly demonstrated that skill.
Yeah, right, I agree.
No, that's good because I just try to put together what I can.
But you're also very busy, so
Yeah.
I'd like to support you if you,
Yeah, no,
okay,
that'd be
great, okay.
Okay.
Right. So what happens with this now? This gets cleaned up and becomes part of our minutes?
We just take, yes. It's 'cause
Okay.
You guys asked it the way it is so that I
Mhm.
will, take all the highlights out and then send it to you. These are now your rules of procedure. It will be in the minutes saying that this passed.
Okay, and can we attach it to the minutes so it becomes part of the minutes? Well, I think it needs to be I think it needs to be a document that the general public can see that we're
Yeah,
working on.
and it helps reinforce when it was approved that way.
Okay. Another one checked off.
It was reviewed and commented and passed, fund balance reserves.
So this was something that we've discussed when this committee first started. This was something that a council member had brought up that should be a priority and something I think should be a priority as well. Of establishing reserves for either capital for certain projects. One of the council members said we should have a reserve to ensure that we can fill the goals in our comprehensive plan. So this is more of a discussion.
And what about operations
Well, there's the contingency fund, the rainy day fund for.
for that? Okay.
Yeah, so that's, and we actually have some of these created, so, or some of these reserves already identified. However, we only have 2 resolutions that encompasses the rules around using those reserves. So we have other reserves in here that we actually have nothing to support on what it's supposed to be used for, how it's gonna be replenished, what amounts should be in there. There's nothing for those other ones. So I sent a listing then, and I pulled out it from our financial statements, the last ones that were audited. of the different reserves or assigns, not necessarily reserve, but assigned fund balances and the amounts that are currently in there. And then the two policies that we have, which are for the storm reserve and the building replacement reserve.
Yeah, those are the two I have.
Those are the only two resolutions that we have that identifies what these reserves can be used for and how we fund those reserves.
Does that also include the size of the reserve?
For the building reserve, yes, they do, because the building reserve is supposed to be based on I believe the depreciation or the yeah, I believe it's the depreciation.
If I'm correct, maybe.
Hmm?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, and that actually is put in the budget, which I want to stop doing because it's not an expense or budget. It's
Right.
reallocating, an unassigned fund balance amount to a assigned fund balance amount based on.
Yeah, it's a journal entry, right?
Yeah, so why we put it in the budget, I don't know. I think I put it in there because the resolution says we're supposed to budget for it every year. And it's still, but it's not expensive. It's a moving of assigned from an unassigned to an assigned based on this resolution.
So you might want to take the steps to get the resolution or the ordinance revised to reflect it, because it may have happened because there wasn't a lot of thought given to the
It's-
difference between a journal entry and
It's
a
misleading
plus or
because
minus.
it's in our budget. That means it's taking from revenue. It's really not. It's reallocated.
right.
Resources.
So you just mentioned too that we already have the fund balance reserves.
Yeah, we have several of them. We have,
Which ones do not?
okay, but we don't have anything for the comprehensive plan. There's nothing in there for that. There's a vehicle replacement reserve, but other than that and the facility, there's nothing, the facilities around facilities. The vehicle replacement reserve doesn't have any specification on what it's used for. So we could use that as a vehicle and equipment replacement reserve. There's the facilities that could be for improvements on the buildings, but there's no reserve for actually facility improvements for like expansion or anything like that. That doesn't specify in there. And of course, there's the comprehensive plan goals. There's nothing set aside to how much we need or how much should go in the reserve to make sure we reach those goals. The rainy day fund, the contingency fund, I think is underfunded because that was established more than 10 years ago. And our budget has literally doubled and yet we have not increased that. But we do have an unassigned, but I don't want that to be, I think you should actually have a contingency that for the purpose of being able to support operating without having to increase taxes for just a short-term period.
So
Right.
you said the rainy day fund is underfunded because it was set at some level before and obviously things have gone up. So how was that original balance determined? Was it based on a percentage of
2
something?
months, was it?
Well, that's the recommended. I don't know. It's at 1.6 million. There is no documentation that I can find. There's no ordinance or resolution for establishing that.
Goes along with Joe's saying, if you think about it from an operational standpoint, 2 to 3 months is probably reasonable to have in a reserve fund. Now, if you take that to these others, they're a little more complicated, but so there's always two questions I have in mind. What calculation would you use to determine the amount? And can it be built in such a way, perhaps with percentages, such that as inflation occurs, it grows up? But the more important question is, where are the funds coming from?
So it would come from the unassigned fund balance. So we have 11.5 million in the unassigned fund balance.
Wow.
Then that would be for the start. Then after that, the replenishment would come from operating funds,
Well,
right?
Yeah, well, we'd have to determine once we determine what the balance should be, and it should be like a percentage of either the assets or what our CIP plan is or something. And I probably would say a percentage of the CIP because that's supposed to be a 5-year plan and we need to make sure we have enough to cover that.
So using that logic, here's just a thought that popped in my head for vehicles. there's probably, you have a really good list of the vehicles we have, their ages and their condition and all that. You could probably quickly determine from that, what's the normal turnover rate of a vehicle? How long do they typically last? 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, whatever it is. And after that typical amount of time, this is the value, average value of those cars. That could be maybe a starting point for the reserve. Times the number of vehicles.
So we have to determine that, and that's why I gave you guys the capital listing, but again, that is something that finance was using. It's for financial reporting purposes, not actually what's happening, and that's what we're working on now. So establishing the reserves that are needed, and I listed a couple based on what I felt that was needed, what I've heard the council was the one who brought up the comprehensive planning goals. Where's the funding come from? How do we know we're gonna have the funding to meet these goals? So trying to establish which ones should we have, and then what levels, which we could use what we currently have in our assets now, and then revise it once we have a more comprehensive plan done. Then replenishing those, because even in, for the FY 26 capital budget, we are using a portion of the vehicle reserve to buy a trash truck. And the reason we did that is because the sanitation fund has year over year put more in that fund than any other fund. So, we're gonna take it from there.
That makes sense. And it is a vehicle.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, because they, it was every year they would put an expense of 30,000, and it literally would move from the sanitation fund to the general fund to put in that reserve. So, yeah. So when I did the budget for FY 26 and they needed a new trash truck because they need to retire one, the funds in the sanitation, their fund balance is not replenished, so let's put that way. So we're using it from the vehicle reserve where they had put money previously. So developing how, once we use that, well, we need to also then replenish it. And we also need to establish how much we need in it. So we could do that by earmarking a certain percentage of operating revenues per year in the budget that gets transferred automatically to this. Or we could use like non-operating revenues like investment earnings, saying a certain percentage of investment earnings gets put into these reserves.
Or maybe a mix or combination of both of those ideas.
Mhm.
I think the more important thing is for you to impress on the council is the need to do this. Because it's the only way to ensure long-term planning. If we don't have that kind of stuff there and a way to continually replenish that, we're gonna be hit with something, and how do we recover?
Also, I think we need to take into consideration inflation,
Right.
because
That's why I like the idea of percentage.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
as opposed to fixed numbers like we have in these resolutions,
Yeah.
because they, the value, the 2013 storm is 100,000 on days, under days money. That's at least just with inflation, 2.5 is 137,000. So
We right now, the
mhm.
only reason we have that is because I believe it was in 16. We got a FEMA grant that gave us a lot of funds for this, which because it was used for that specific purpose, I didn't want to go to anywhere else, so I put it in there. And yet we didn't have any storms or anything, and we had it budgeted so that I didn't need to take from it.
That's
So
good.
it's sat there for a very long time.
So
because
how much
the budget
is-
the 20,000?
How much is in there now?
133.
So it's close to at least the inflation.
Yeah.
So using your logic on how you would put it together, for these funds that have not yet been established, does the 11 million cover it?
I'm not sure. I think that'd be enough. The problem I have is there's a lot of plans and ideas that I feel are gonna cost the town a lot. And that 11 million is going to disappear very quickly if we don't start earmarking and say, okay, this is how much you have to use to do whatever, but these need to go into these other reserves to ensure that we have funding for when those need to be replaced or if something happens or anything.
That's actually how we got started on the inadequate reserves that we did. We said we were setting aside so people wouldn't have in their mind that there's all this extra money here because it's not extra.
Right.
No.
And it's competing. You know, you have the reserves that I think you're on the right track to figure out a way to move those into the things that we need reserves for. And then it will cause the spenders to be conscious of the fact that we don't have unlimited funds.
And then there should be a set of rules or procedures for moving money into that annually, and also for when something gets drawn out of that
Right.
reserve. What's the criteria that allows you to withdraw from
We're
there?
Missing those two pieces.
You are missing those.
We set up the reserve, but we don't have any criteria around it on how to use it, how to replenish it. It just has been sitting there.
Yeah, and that's really a great point, Karen, because if without those rules and procedures, it can unfortunately be too easy to get the money,
Mm-hmm.
which could be detrimental to the long-term life of the finances.
So like the contingency fund, it's at 1.6. I think if we did a 2-month, I want to say I calculated like 2.1. Don't quote me on that, but I don't think we should have 2 months in there. I think we should have, even though 2 months is the minimum of the recommendation, we should have at least 3 months in there of and it should be 3 months of our fiscal year budget, not operating budget, because now we've separated operating capital out. So to 3 months of our operating budget, something like that.
So as the budget grows, the reserve,
And what we
Yeah.
would do is a rollover or a rollover of what 3 months would be of the following budget. So for FY 25 fund balance rollover, I would look at FY 26 operating and take 3 months of that and make sure that's what's covered in our contingency.
So maybe you could consider that as the starting point for how you figure out the other balances, because that's fundamentally 25% of an annual budget. So I think you're on the right track. What kind of help do you need from us?
Well, probably more of what type of criteria we should have around these things. Where would we make sure that we have what criteria for replenishing? What type of policies should we have in place on how we determine them? Because once I get those, then I can determine the numbers.
Well, I would imagine that's all out there, and you belong to MML, right? Maryland Municipal League,
I don't, but
the town does.
Yeah.
So this sort of thing with percentages and best management practices, that should be available through that.
Yeah, I was thinking that
Probably.
along that line.
I guess I'm looking for.
probably GFOA though.
And that's what I pulled this from, the GFOA.
Uh-huh.
I pulled that from that. And there is, I guess I'm looking for guidance on what do you guys feel we should have it at? Instead of me saying, oh, this is what this says, so I'm gonna just put that in there
Mhm.
as a financial.
I was just looking for something as a guideline on how, and then
Yeah,
back the numbers of the town in.
Does the town of La Plata, as a municipality, receive a rating?
No,
we don't have a bond rating. We don't.
our borrowing is usually through the state, you know.
Yeah, we don't really take out much debt. I mean, the bonds were because of the developer and they did all the work in getting that. And it only came through the town because it gave them a lower rate and that rate was going to be passed on to the people that buy the house with
Okay.
residents.
Well, I only raised that point, kind of piggyback on what Karen said. MML might have some good advice on what works. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And
Well, GFOA, I think is gonna have probably better, more along those lines, I think,
Yeah.
wouldn't he?
I mean, like here, it does say 2 months and then it talks about the different types you should have.
Right.
So I guess I'm looking at, what would you guys want to see? What would you recommend to council to have in a ordinance or a resolution. I mean, I can come up with things, but there's other areas that I'm concerned about, not necessarily general fund, but the enterprise funds and making sure that we meet some of these mandates. Because if you look at the stormwater, and the MS4 mandates, we are going to eat through our fund balance that we have. We have 1.48 million now, but that's going to be used up very quickly. And that's not counting the 2 million that was earmarked from the ARPA funds to cover the MS4 requirements. So I am concerned with the stormwater, and I'm concerned with the sanitation because of the operating costs on the sanitation continues to increase
Yes,
significantly.
as long as we keep growing.
Yeah.
Definitely gonna happen.
Where water and sewer, we have a major facility fee that's covering the growth that we need to upgrade to maintain that growth. The developers are paying for that. So we have that additional source of income to cover that, but we don't have those type of things in the stormwater. And we're having a lot of mandates to cover retrofitting those.
Well, I mean, the GFO, the notes that you gave us, the talk, I mean, it's got a structured layout
Yeah.
towards the end. I was just thinking that from what would be put in to restricted is where the information that we possibly could get from other towns, the same sort of size as ours.
Yeah, there were some things that just based on the common things, which were capital improvements, the capital replacement, of course, the rainy day fund, and then, of course, the comprehensive plan goals that one council member brought up that we should have an assigned fund that, which really, it's not a reserve, it's assigned. Funds to make sure we accomplish those goals. But then my question would be is, what's realistic? There's a lot of goals in there,
Mhm.
and we haven't even evaluated the cost of meeting those goals. So what's realistic to put aside for something that we will really do and the actual cost to do those
And how old is the CIP?
4 years?
So it's already outdated. So maybe that should be tied into a new CIP, and that should be part of the approach to it.
I think they're looking at doing another one in 4 or 5 years.
They're gonna wait another 4 or 5
Yeah,
years,
'cause I think
even
it's
with all
every
the,
10 years.
yeah, but there's been so many changes. I mean, the town has doubled in the last 4 years. I don't see how they can be the same.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Did
not a
you-
surprise that it's doubling though. I mean, we knew
Mhm.
that was out there.
But you raise a good point that with, it's Pine Grove now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Still hung up on the old name, but, you know, they've put a lot of money into this for sanitation and sewer. So through the timing of the build out, we'll probably be increasing staff on that side of the house. But then once the build out is complete, we're still going to be dealing with inflation and other things. So,
Yep.
these reserves we have help from the developer to get them going now, but they're going to have to continue to grow even after, because cost of living is going to go up. We're not going to stop that.
Maybe it's time to sit down with the CIP and tie it to this and see what we think is realistic.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an approach to take, particularly if the CIP is being put forward as being the,
Well, yeah.
The
that's one
document.
Thing that, has been pushed on, let's get some of these goals done and, show the community where we're at on those goals. So, but we also need to pay for them, and we need to have funds to pay for them and be realistic on what it really costs to accomplish these goals.
because, yeah, I just pulled it up and, yeah, we're talking growth and infrastructure, environment, live, work and play and implementation. So they don't have, but underneath that, they've got a lot of subs. Land use, municipal growth element, goals and actions under each and every one. Huh. Some of them are just flowery language. Establish a community and campus zone for hospital and healthcare facilities. Have we done that? I think we need to pull it and see what we've done and what we haven't done.
that we haven't. I
Yeah.
don't think there's a lot that has even been accomplished.
Yeah, so to be realistic with what you want to do and financially, maybe take a look at this and say, this has not been done, this is realistic, this isn't, I mean, this is not even being, it's not even on the horizon. Can it be done in the next 4 to 5 years? Can it?
Next week, the priorities of this new council will be out there. And so we can look at what priorities they have and how it aligns with this.
I printed them out,
Oh, you got them?
but I
Do
didn't
you
bring
know
them
when-
with me.
Can you share those with us? Can you email them to us?
I think so.
Well,
Yeah,
it was supposed to be on this Tuesday's meeting, but they took it off of
Right.
Tuesday's meeting. And it's going on this.
yeah, I was curious. I'm trying to remember what I printed out because actually, the big thing is like a 15-page document, then there was something another, whatever. Anyway,
I skimmed them. I didn't, there were a few that just stuck out. I'm like,
So how many people do we have in La Plata right now?
there's roughly slightly over 11,000 based on
Okay.
census.
So they projected 10,470 for 2025, and they projected for 2030, 11,433. So right there, you've got
Who's they?
the comprehensive plan.
Gosh.
Yeah, so right there, that's the
Oh.
population projection.
I remember that
Yeah,
specifically because Pine Grove was still in this malaise of over 30 years, nothing happening.
mhm,
And I remember the town council where the commission went in. And the very next discussion was operations saying that Horton had just bought that property and they were going to dig a hole in August. I had a cow. So we did not account for that in the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so that explains that. Okay.
That's why I pick up the phone and call Bobby, go, Bobby, where were you when we were doing the comprehensive plan?
so when you start looking at it from that perspective, and this plan is going out till 2030, and we've got the population now in 2025, then
Yeah.
we need to take a closer look.
Yep.
And tie it back into what
all right.
yeah.
Go to Town of La Plata,
Mm-hmm.
meetings, yeah, scroll up a little bit.
Okay,
There you go.
okay.
Okay, go to the site. Okay, and scroll to June 10th.
Oh, okay, okay. I can get that. If I don't get it now, I can get it. That's
And
where you
then,
pulled it from?
yes,
Okay.
and it's got consolidated priorities list, priorities chart, and priorities urgency,
Oh,
frequency, impact, sort.
okay. Yeah, it's not going in right now, so I'll go in and get that.
Okay.
Yeah, my other computer, I'm signed on and. Okay. Yeah, okay.
And I don't know. Well, I guess this new council, is that their priorities or they got? They
So
didn't
have
their
they looked at
priorities?
this to do that?
The copper,
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Have they looked at the budget?
Well, I
They went through the budget.
And you said some of them have made reference to the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
So.
Okay,
it's in
so
there.
somebody's
Well, I
looking at
know
it.
Let's say one council member has made her.
I don't know.
Well, they got a lot to swallow in a short amount of time, so got a comprehensive plan, just like a lot of other things are not minor, so.
So how long have we been in committee? It's not been a year yet,
We
has it?
started November,
November was it
yeah, I'm not sure.
January?
I'm thinking January.
It might have been,
Okay,
yeah.
As soon as you guys started, we started the budget process.
yeah.
I can tell you, I knew we were gonna drown.
Well, we pulled a lot of information,
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of different, and things are changing quicker than we can keep up with some of them. So what would help you with what you need to be doing? I mean, I know that I'd like to do something a little broader and tie it back, but is there something that you need very quickly?
I mean, this is just something that I know that needs to be done
Okay.
and basically need to start preparing the documents to identify the different assigned fund balances we should have, what the criteria around the usage is, how the replenishment, how do we determine the balance, those type of things.
Mhm.
And then once we know that this is kind of how we're going through with it, I can then look at, okay, these are the amounts that we currently have in our facilities estimated costs are, or our vehicle turnover replacement is, and start
So-
establishing those assigned fund balances.
The criteria on using the reserves and the replenishment and the percentage increases and the policies that go with that, is that something you'd like this committee to work on? Okay.
It's something I know that we need to get done.
Uh-huh.
Before we push it off, that means there's more, I guess, opportunity to take unassigned fund balance and do whatever with. And I don't think we're gonna do that the next fiscal year, but depending on how the studies come back with the police station and the public works facility and what they want to do with out there, that 11 million can be eaten up very quickly.
Okay. So do we agree that that's something that this committee can work on?
Think so.
What I was typing was adding to my to-do list to do some searches.
Some research on it, yeah. So do we need a motion that that we're going to do some focusing on building the criteria and policies for you, for the unassigned fund balance or some wording of some kind? Or,
I guess, does the chair consult with you at all on the agenda? No, I mean, I understand,
I mean, I haven't even asked.
right, and
But yeah, if you guys want stuff on this agenda, I mean, I really, all I send is a list to Kelly and say, can you put this on the agenda? So whatever you guys wanted to.
I don't think it requires a vote.
I don't think so either. I
I
think
think
you
anything
just
like
ask her.
would be like asking her to take a message upward, but
Yeah,
this is, I think, all internal stuff.
Or
Okay.
would we take this to the council and say, this is our recommendations for this resolution?
that's when we would vote
Yeah.
on it.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So that being said, I mean, this is a big project. Because we've got to determine the criteria and the policies, then we have to determine what is going to be considered a reserve, an account to reserve.
So I think you might be leading to, if we don't vote, does that mean we let ourselves off easy? Maybe it's just a matter of saying we can speak today on what we want on the next agenda. That'll drive us to
Mhm.
getting some things done between now and then.
I think we need to come up to speed on this. So we've got a month, like you said, I'm thinking the same thing. I need to go out and do some review, and I'd be really interested to see what MML's got. If we have access to anything that,
Yeah, let me see who's a member and I can see what, see if they can pull some information.
Yeah.
And send it to you.
that would be great.
Yeah, and like I said, one of the things that can be used to determine maybe the capital replacement reserve is the CPI. But again, I've hesitated because we haven't done the proper assessment to say, oh, this is,
Mhm.
this CPI matches what we need to do. But I will send you that, 'cause we're working on that to get that finished for our budget document for the GFOA. I need that, and I also need, a long-term plan, which I've reached out to all the departments to say, what are you planning over the next 5 years? What services are you adding?
Have you given them a date
I gave them the 23rd
of
of this-
June?
of June.
Okay.
I haven't received any questions. Well, now I take that back. Public Works did ask the question of, do we have to do it for each department? And my response was, yes, I need to know what you're changing or what your plans are for each
Mhm.
department. But there hasn't been any, then the other thing I sent out for them to, so in our budget document that we sent to the GFOA, we have, key performance indicators, which everybody updates and it's on a chart. But I've asked them to identify what these key performance indicators are telling us, what challenges is it saying that we have, how are we, addressing those challenges,
Mhm.
to give us short narrative on those type of things.
Okay, so maybe what we can do is make a bullet under old business that gets addressed each meeting, establishing reserves for capital or some.
That makes sense.
And from then, it makes us bring it up each time.
Hmm.
Because we can also add other stuff, but at least that will bring us back.
And then just, once I get the policies in here, then I can determine them out. The data that we have.
And see, when you're doing policies and stuff like that, you might want to have somebody review them, like the attorney, which is another reason, if we can get stuff from MML, that stuff could be reviewed, so it might be cleaner.
I will get,
Mhm.
have somebody do a search for.
They do have their goals broken down as short-term, long-term, and what have
And that's
you.
the council.
Yeah,
This is that document you were telling us about.
this is like a narrative and
Did they do
whatever.
a work session to get this?
That's exactly the same question I was gonna have.
Hmm.
I can't imagine them doing it during a council meeting.
They did like I wouldn't call it a work session, it was like a training with, MML. They came
Mhm.
in to discuss some of the goals and, so I guess they didn't do it directly to this, but it was to give them some ideas and get an idea of where
Okay.
path is.
This is broken down in the mayor and the four
Yeah, so
different
they're-
councils. Right, so this much is all the mayor, then this is Ward 1 and scrolling on through.
Okay, I'm gonna pull that and take a look at it.
And there's a one-page document. If you go there,
Okay.
you'll see 3 different documents. This is the long version and a short version, and I've forgotten what they called the other one.
Okay.
What else is good for the water?
Well, I'd like to bring up something under new business. I'm
Okay.
gonna give a little caveat here that there was some schedule that prevented me from attending the last meeting, but since then, my family's been hit with some significant issues. We had 2 deaths in one day, a bunch of illnesses. I'm now a personal representative for my brother. So the last several weeks, I'm falling more and more behind. But when did the council start, the new current council?
May 12th, the first day.
Yeah, May 15th was all this happened. So on the 13th, is it May 12th? It's, oh, that's right.
Or sorry, May 6th.
There were,
No, it was May 12th. It had to be.
I got to watch the first two meetings, and first one really didn't happen. The second meeting did. And I have to admit, because of this stuff that happened in the family, I didn't get to see the whole thing. But I get the sense that, I'll use the word struggle, that we had with the council regarding the pension, the extra pension for the police. The current council is even stronger on the side that the previous council was on. And so I got to thinking about that. We seem pretty confident as a committee on our position, and that both councils, and a new one, I think even stronger so, just a hard wall against our ideas. So maybe this is an opportunity for a special committee to be put together with some of us, some of the council, so that we research this stuff together and then be able to, have a dialogue rather than it's my turn to hit the ball, then it's their turn to hit the ball. I don't know if there's a better way to say that, making any sense.
Yeah, I mean, so the new thing is they redirected this pension to the LEOPS, which is through the Maryland State, which I already know what the cost is. I could tell you what we would have to pay if it wasn't FY 25 or 26. I know exactly what we would have to pay. But yet there needs to be an actuarial study on what the buy-in, and that's what.
That's the word that I was looking for, what I was just saying.
And they approved that, 70-some hundred.
$7,300 some dollars.
Right.
That's for that. That will tell you how much we have to basically grandfather all police officers in. Then the reoccurring costs year over year, we already know that because that's published on the Maryland State Retirement website of what the percentage
So
town would have to pay.
what's the ballpark of the startup cost?
We don't know that yet.
But
because
it's expensive.
Well, I know, because I can tell you right now, if in FY 26, if we took the salaries that we have now and paid the percentage the town would have to pay to have everybody in the LEOPS, yes, and this is the recurring cost, it would be a little slightly under $1 million. That is, it currently costs us, I don't know exactly, but 300 some thousand right now for the current Maryland State Retirement benefits for just the police officers. To add them to LEOPS, it would be slightly under an additional $700,000
Per year.
per year. That's with the current rate. Now, I've looked at the rate year over year over year and how it increased, and I want to say the average increase year over year was like 6.1%. I'm trying to take this off. I've done all this math, which I'll probably can find what I did and give it to you. But then if I looked at the last 5 years, it's like a 9.3% year over year increase.
So let me
Because
make
it's a
sure I'm repeating back, understanding this. If we were already resolved and agreed to move forward, today we pay $300 to maintain our current retirement plan. 300,000.
With what we're doing now, we pay, I want to say 336,000, just, and this is just for the sworn police officers.
Okay,
That's not for anybody. That is our cost of our current plan right now. That's what we're paying right now.
and if we added LEOPS to that, that would cost us another $700,000.
It's slightly under 700,000, and that's just the cost, not the buy-in. That's just the cost to have that plan year over year for that.
Does there have to be a buy-in?
Yes.
So
Well-
what is the buy-in accomplishing?
Well, that puts those officers that have, for how many years that they have in the Maryland State,
Mhm.
the regular one, we have to pay for what it would cost to put them in the LEOPS plan.
Can you move Maryland State over to LEOP as a partial?
Just the police officers.
Yes.
So they'll look at what they already have put in throughout the years and
Mhm.
tell us how much more the town needs to pay in to make sure that they get.
Bring it to
same
LEOP.
benefits to LEOP.
So why didn't they just automatically go into LEOPS in the very beginning? What made them put them in Maryland State retirement?
What do you mean, years ago?
Yes, yeah, the history.
Well, I mean, I wasn't here for it, but I mean, it was a big leap just putting them in the Maryland State Plan.
Wasn't this in like 2002, something like that?
It was slightly before that because when I came here, we were having to pay. We bought in on credit part of it because we owed $1 million. If I remember correctly, that we were paying 8%.
We were paying, yeah, it was roughly around there. We had debt service and I think it was over 2 million, like 2 million.
Okay, maybe it was, but anyway, what we had to pay was the actuarial amount that they expected to earn in the pension plan. And I studied it, and I don't, to this day, don't know if it absolutely was legal or not. But we got issued, we didn't issue a bond, but we got credit through a bank at about 3% and got rid of that 8% load.
So fundamentally, joining the Maryland plan, more specifically the LEOPS plan, we are being asked to fund, make sure there's a balance there, the earnings from which uses to pay those who retire. Is that correct? Is that a stretch?
I don't know what your question is.
So let's say we have 25 policemen that are retired post the setup of LEOPS. So those 25 officers,
They would be, this would be only for active employees. So say that.
but it's providing them the ability to be paid once they retire.
Yes.
That's correct.
So if the employees here now, say that they've been here for 10 years. Well, what we need to know is, okay, we need to give them 10 years of credit in the LEOPS plan. They only have 10 years of credit in the Maryland State Employer Retirement Plan. And then they're gonna tell us how much it's gonna cost for that benefit for that 10 years, how much additional
Okay.
we have to pay.
I'm glad you just put it that way, because I don't think that the money that we would have to spend this year to do all this is going to be as high in following years, because the big chunk is setting up that 10-year credit.
That's the million, right? No?
We don't know how much it's gonna cost us to move the officers from the Maryland State Retirement Pension System to the LEOPS.
Oh,
That's what the $7,000 is, to tell us how much it's gonna cost us to just buy into that plan with what we.
No, bring them up to date.
Mhm.
I thought the LEOPS was in addition to the Maryland retirement plan.
It won't be for them.
They'd be moving from the Maryland State Retirement Plan to the LEOPS plan.
And they will transfer their Maryland State retirement over,
The credits.
and then
over-
you have to fund the
Fund
difference.
the difference.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yes. And that's what that 7,000 is, to determine how much that's gonna cost us to do that.
So today, before LEOPS, how much does a police officer contribute to his or her own retirement?
It's 7% and it will remain 7%.
And then what do we provide?
Right now, it's 13.31%,
So we provide about 2/3, they provide 1/3.
and LEOPS is 39.5%, something like that. That would be the towns, and they still pay the 7%.
Wow. So that's a huge jump right there.
That's-
So here's what I'm thinking. We as a group, and Nicole did a ton of research on this earlier. We're having this discussion, and I'd like to think we're more knowledgeable on the subject than the council members are currently. Yet we're still struggling understanding it. We keep asking you these questions, so.
So how are they understanding it?
Right, that's my point. So I think I would reinforce my suggestion that there be some kind of a committee made up of a person or persons from the council with a person or persons from this committee to try to see that, are you okay?
Yeah.
That, to see if we can,
Yes.
in a teaming way, get on the same page. Because it seems like we just keep continuing a battle here. Because it sounds like what the council's telling you to do, we don't care what you say, Karina. This is what you're going to do. And do they have as much basis to understand why that's the right answer than we do? And I'm not claiming that we have the right answer.
Okay.
I'm not for or against this benefit. My concern is we don't have the current revenue stream to support this benefit. So this type of benefit is a significant cost, and there needs to be a revenue stream that can support it long term, because it will never go away. I'll say stop the program sometime later, but so that is really my concern. I'm not for or against or anything with the way I look at it is like, can we afford it? With the revenue stream we have now, we cannot afford it.
So if I go back to your numbers on the current plan, 7% plus, let's say 14. So we're together with the employee, we're paying 25%.
Well,
Okay. But it would go up almost to 50% with layoffs. Why is that?
45.
because the LEOPS plan has earlier benefits, a higher percentage of pay. So it costs more for that plan.
And because
just-
it's earlier,
Yeah.
longer years to pay up because we
And
expect
a
them.
higher percentage of salary.
Okay, that's where an actuarial. So we've got $7,000 to buy the services of an actuary.
Well, that's what Maryland State required. That's how much it costs for the Maryland State to do it. They're doing it because they're the ones who are gonna have to tell us how much it's gonna cost to buy into that plan with our current staff.
So has that already been, is that started?
We're in the application stage.
So that got approved then.
It got
Yes.
approved, yes. It was an amendment to the budget. So the budget that was presented, there were two amendments when they passed the budget. One is the $7,305 for the study to see how much it costs to buy into the ups. And the other is a 1.5% bonus for employees that is supposed to be determined by the new town manager.
Yeah, I saw that.
That's potentially encompassing for all staff.
That's.
And it's a bonus,
it's-
not a pay
it's the
increase.
bonus, and it's up to the town manager. That was all
mean-
it was given.
But the town manager, under that resolution, the town manager has the right to consider anybody on staff.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can,
So
he can do whatever he wants.
the previous council had allotted some $90,000 to study these other pension options that we never.
To
spent, right?
establish it, right?
So no, that was cut out of the budget. So the budget that they recommended that before the council left was that there was nothing for the pension in there at all. That the land use study be put in there and that the
Yeah.
and that the 90,000 for the project leaders. So I created a budget with that criteria. Then that budget went to this new council. The new council went back and forth on it, and then when they went to, they asked for that the $7,300 some dollars for the pension study be put in there. For actuarial for the Maryland State be put in there, and that 1.5% salary or bonus be put in there for the town manager to determine what to do.
So did we miss an opportunity? Maybe I misunderstand the original. Way back when we started, I thought there was money in to investigate or establish this
Yeah.
extra. Did we spend any of that?
No, we didn't, and it was taken out of the FY 26 budget.
Okay.
It was removed per their request.
So what is in the FY 26 budget for retirement for the police?
Right now, the same thing that everybody else has, except for that one amount that's for determining the cost of buying
Of
the ups.
So let's say we spend the 7,300 and Maryland gives us a plan and the council buys into it. Will that result in a budget amendment?
No, because it wouldn't even start until FY 27. We wouldn't even be, even if we got the numbers back, we could not start until the
Okay.
next budget year anyways.
Wow. There goes your 11 million.
There goes what?
There goes the 11 million.
Yeah.
I know. I think I can tell you it's gonna be several $1 million.
Well, The,
but.
if you prioritize, I would still recommend that the reserves have higher priority than this retirement issue.
I think it's very important that we do the
Because-
reserves and be very cautious and monitor them and make sure we have appropriate level for how our long-term plan, which we need to develop a long-term plan. We desperately need to develop a long-term plan,
Yeah.
but I can't do that alone. I need the departments to tell me what they need, why they need it, what are they planning to do? If you just tell me that, I get an idea of the cost of that type of
We
plan.
need to make sure that we're establishing for our kids and grandkids that this place is financially viable.
Mhm.
And the reserves are necessary
Yes.
to do that.
Wow. We go round in circles on this, don't we? It's funny, as that was on my list of questions as well, was the status of the police retirement. So we now have that.
Any other,
The status of the outstanding grants with the Board of Public Works.
So we got another contract signed. And so there's only one now outstanding that, they said they were bringing to, I can't remember the exact agency that they were bringing for review. So we have one now outstanding.
So Dorchester is moving forward.
That's the one we have, 500,000 that's outstanding.
That's, so Dorchester is still
East Hampton
outstanding.
has received both of the, now can draw down on both of the grants. The Dorchester can draw down on one of the grants and the other grant, the contract has been signed, but I haven't got the drawdown notice yet.
Okay.
I've kind of gotten the impression that the new council is not excited about the Dorchester project at all.
And I keep reminding them, hey, these funds are for this building. Or some type of community engagement,
And-
how you do
And they
it.
came from a grant.
Yes.
They have to be fond of.
Yeah, I mean, how you do it is up to you, but you just have to use it for that purpose.
But that's,
Good,
That
Does
brings
it give
me-
you that much leeway?
So the grant is for renovating the building as a community center. So when I submitted the paperwork for the grant, I submitted, we're gonna use this money for renovations for the building. That's what the grant's for.
so you use the words, using the example of the police, and I can apply it to Dorchester. The police department is now in a position to be able to draw down. But is there a plan?
That's what's supposed to happen in FY 26. And when I put in the grant information, I put in the monies that we are getting from the state was part of the planning and engineering.
So I'll just become a broken record. There needs to be a project manager there
Exactly.
to make sure that we're drawing down for the right reasons. We don't want to run out of that free money and then not be any closer to
Yep.
why we got the free money.
Yeah.
Well, when he shows up at a meeting, well, Karen, you had suggested in the beginning that he come to one of our meetings, right?
Mhm.
He's going to get that earful from us, right?
I'm very optimistic about this new town manager.
I think
Oh,
we
yeah.
can,
Yeah, we did a reverse interview and,
oh, good.
I really liked, some of how he presented himself and how his knowledge on the budget and how he brought up the finance committee. So
And he's coming from Colorado.
Yeah.
So he's uplifting
La
himself
Plata.
and family.
he's already moved. He's in the house. He's already moved.
Oh, he's in one of the
Yeah, he's
townhouses?
in one of those houses.
On the corner.
Yeah,
Oh, that's close. Going
Now,
on his door, hey,
yeah,
Ah,
he's here.
low commuting costs.
poor guy. I think it would be good to take a moment to let him know what we've done
Mhm.
and the philosophy behind why we're making some of the recommendations that we're making.
Agreed.
You
And
know-
if has he done this kind of job before?
Yes.
So
he
he's-
was
he
the
has-
county, manager.
So he has experience with finance committees elsewhere.
I'm assuming he does.
So we should also give him the opportunity to say to us, you guys haven't thought of this. or, I'm
Absolutely.
glad you thought of this or whatever, right?
I think there's a lot we haven't thought of because we've just been.
Oh, yeah.
swamped.
I believe when I
Mhm.
think back, it's like there's so much.
Mhm.
There's so many ideas I have in my head, but I can't do them all at once.
We said it would be several years to do this, didn't we? Something that has to be built.
Well, in the meantime, because we know we have so much, it's important to focus on priorities about what do we need to do to make sure that we can ensure the longevity of the financial viability of the town.
Yeah.
That's why I've been pushing, we need to get a long-term, not just something that we just add 3% to. We can't do that. So that's why I've been pushing that. I put a list of what I'm looking for, what you can think about. Even if you don't give me numbers, if you tell me what your ideas are, I can probably research on how to do it.
I'd be interested in the financial challenges that are happening at state level, if that's another MML question that can be asked.
Oh, my God.
You know, I mean, are other towns sitting like we are struggling over things like this?
Okay, so you were really talking about other towns in the state. You weren't talking about the
Correct.
state government.
No, the state, our towns that are a part of it, towns similar to us.
Other towns like Bowie or Leonardtown. or
Yeah,
You look at us
Easton.
financially, we are in a good position. The problem is we've got all these ideas that we want to do that's going to push us out of that position.
but.
So we just have
you-
to prioritize.
Yeah, and your town manager, I mean, you at the moment, we're asking, what projects do you want? But the reality is, it's not projects, what do you want? It's what projects do you need to have done in 12 months, 24, 36, 48? And it's need, the word's need, because everybody's going to have a wish list.
Oh, yeah.
And some of them should be coming back with nothing. Or next to nothing,
That's the
and
thing
that-
on the new police building when that came up in a meeting, like, we've got to identify need versus want.
Yeah.
Because the 18 million want isn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And you took the first step this year, 2% increase on the budget. I mean, the last few years I worked at the college, we had zero. We were told to build our budgets and we had 0% increase. So and it's amazing what you can do without when you start.
Including staff? The
Yeah,
staff were,
everything.
staff wasn't getting raises?
Yeah, we didn't, the last few years, they had to go and do a study just like the town did on us in my last year there because we were underpaid.
Wow.
But, you
Yeah,
know,
but-
they,
But that's part of the longevity too.
yes.
We talked earlier about, we've had a lot of turnover. Finances could be a contributor to that. And we need to make sure that we're paying competitive wages.
We did have a study done, a compensation study done,
Mhm.
and it was implemented in FY 23. And I thought it was a great idea. My issue is the way it was implemented was very poorly done.
Yeah, ours was done over 3 years.
That would cause a huge increase in expenses, especially personnel expense, because of the way it was implemented. If we implemented it more strategically, we would be in a better position than we are now. And the employees would have gotten raises on a regular basis instead of that one time.
Right.
Right.
And then they've had nothing since then,
Yeah,
which is,
Because
yeah,
of how this, yeah.
I have to
And,
go.
and again, it's nobody's fault. The problem was they didn't have an HR director. They didn't have an engaged finance director. There was nobody in to say, hey, just take a step back and analyze the data and see how it fits in and the plan and look at the long-term effects. And that's what I'm trying to reiterate with the council now is, okay, you've got these great ideas. There's nothing wrong with them, but we need to know what the long-term effects are before we implement something.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, stand up.
Amen.